With Nothing and OnePlus with good sounding earphones at interesting price points already in the market, it seems as if Realme felt a little left out. Cue their new Buds Air 3. Can these stand up against the other two brands? But first, let's see how these stand up all by themselves. Hey guys, and welcome back. It seems as if Realme has significantly upped their game since I last reviewed any of their products. So let's jump straight into the build of these. The overall build and detail on these is impressive right from the moment you unbox these. They have a glossy finish on the case, so expect scratches and scuffs to form over time. I quite like the design of these. They're simple, elegant, and the earphones are easy to access thanks to a simple layout. The top of the case has the company's branding and the lid is spring-loaded. The case has a slightly shrill and plastic sounding snap, which could have sounded better if it had some sort of rubber lip. The only real issue I have with these is the accessibility of the earphones. Getting a grip on them isn't quite that easy when you want to take them out of the case, so I've resorted to pinching on the silicone tips to pull them out. There's no grip on the stem. They could have made the top end of the stem with ridges to make them easier to remove from the case. The case does have a USB-C charging point at the bottom, and something that's a classy touch is how the indication light breathes to let you know it's charging. Once it's a steady green, you'll know it's fully charged. There's a small, slightly recessed button on the side of the case, which is its pairing or reset button. When it comes to the earphones, the housing holding the drivers seems a bit on the bulbous side and does feel like it's a bit too large for my ears. It's not the tip that causes the fit issue, it's the sheer size of the housing. The stems are a silver color with a matte finish and support tap-enabled features, and the silicone tips provided are soft and comfortable to use. On a feature front, these come with Bluetooth 5.2, which seems to be a standard now. The USB-C charging supports quick charge. These do not have wireless charging, which seems normal at this price point, but I find it rather odd that their first generation product featured wireless charging and this doesn't. They have active noise cancelling and tout a 42 dB worth of cancelling. These have a game mode that drops the latency to as quick as 88 milliseconds, which can also help with video absorption. They have a dual device pairing, which is a neat feature to have, as I experienced with the OnePlus Buds Z2. On those, you'd swap between devices by pressing and holding the touchpad, so you're connected to one or the other. With these, however, you can be connected to both devices at the same time. But here's where the problems start. If you're playing music on a device and interact with the other, your audio stops with every interaction you have with the secondary device. It doesn't work as well as it should. The Z2's approach may seem a bit more tedious, but at least it works right. Autoplay and pause works well with in-ear detection. The touch controls are super sensitive, so you don't have to smack at them to work. And the amount of taps you do, you get the same amount of beeps played back to confirm your inputs. Now, when it comes to the control you have over the Realme Link app, it's quite something because it's very well laid out and simple to use. You can select your noise cancelling profiles here between strong and mild, or put it into normal and transparency mode. Normal disengages the ANC, and you can tell the passive isolation is pretty good with these ear tips. You can engage a wind noise reduction mode, which should reduce the flutter you get from a breeze. Then you have a sound effects tab where you can swap between 3 different EQ settings, which I'll talk about in the chapter about sound. It has a customized audio tuning tab, which can give you a personal profile, which is adjusted to your hearing. It does a small hearing test over a few minutes to analyze your hearing before providing suggested boosted signals for a better listening experience. Now, I'm all for getting your ears tested, but I don't really think this is the way to go about it. This does seem like a bit of a gimmick, but if you do want to go out and get your ears tested, it is worthwhile going out and finding a good audiologist who can test your ears and tell you exactly how to look after them. Then, below the customized audio, you have a volume enhancer, which you can use to give the audio a boost in volume, which I wouldn't recommend if you like listening to very high volumes. I'm sure you don't want to damage your hearing. Then below the volume enhancer, you do have the options for having dual device pairing, a earbud fit test, in-ear detection, auto answers, and you can go into your button settings to customize your various tab features. The active noise cancelling is actually pretty good on these earphones. I think they might be slightly better than the OnePlus Buds Z2, but I don't really want to commit to that statement because my Z2s have gone in for a replacement, so I can only pit these two against each other once those earphones come back. These earphones do manage to reduce the sound of engines and the rumble of vehicles passing by outside of my studio on their strong mode. When you shift it over to the mild mode, you can tell some lower frequencies of engines and rumbling does tend to leak in slightly. These do manage to eliminate the sound of the fan motor really well, but the little bit of whooshing that comes off the fan blades does tend to creep in very slightly. Now, I'm not quite certain if the environmental noise cancelling is as good as the active noise cancelling, but there's only one way to find out. I'm standing near the busy street where I normally do a lot of these call tests to see how well the ANC does in these. So I'm playing back off of the camera audio right now, so you have a sense of the noise that's around me and the kind of effort that the ANC will have to be putting in to eliminate all these sounds. Because there's a lot of vehicles moving around on this road right now. So one thing I want to check and see is if I change the ANC profile, does it affect the ENC at all? So right now, I'm on the noise cancelling mode on the strong setting, and I'm switching over to the mild setting about now. It'll be interesting to see if there is a difference. So I'm switching over to the normal now. So once the ANC is off for me, you can tell that the passive isolation kicks in. So I can hear a lot more of the engine noises and all that are appearing, and I do not know if it's going to affect the ANC as much. Another thing I do want to check and see is if I put one earphone back in the case, a few people do this so that they can maybe stretch the call times. So when this battery dies out, you can put on the next earphone. So I'll put it back in the case and see if this does make a difference in post, obviously. So I don't want to make a decision when it comes to how good or bad the ANC, because you guys are going to be deciding whether or not this works out better for your callers, because this is how they're going to hear you. So this is a decision that's best made by you. So I do hope this helps you, and I'll see you back in the studio. Codecs supported are SBC and AAC. These earphones come with a 10mm driver, so I still don't know why the housing is as large as it is. The Nothing Ear ones have a larger driver, but their housing is a bit smaller than these. Perhaps these have such a large housing because they've got some wind cancelling technology that they're trying. That could explain the size. On a volume front, these are more than comfortable to listen to between 30 and 50%. And I really like that I can listen to these at 5% volume before going to sleep, because they do it softly enough. That's something the OnePlus Buds Z2 made me feel uncomfortable with. Those are way too loud even at lower volumes. Something I do want to point out with these earphones, now this is with some recordings and not all of them. But if you've ever used a high impedance set of headphones and plugged them into a low powered amp or even your phone, they have the feeling that they're not being driven well enough, they're not getting enough power. These earphones can sometimes sound like that with some tracks in particular. So it's possible that they do this with tracks that are recorded at a lower volume. This tends to give you a feeling as if they lack a certain amount of punch in the audio. Soundstage on these honestly did surprise me, not because of their price, but because I wasn't really expecting it to be as good as it is. It exists within a bubble in your head, much like most other TWS earphones, but does seem to have a slight vertical stage apart from a horizontal one, which is quite unexpected. No doubt experiencing this matters on the recordings you're listening to. Imaging is yet another thing that did surprise me. It's detailed and well constructed. If you're into listening to specific nuances in your recordings, I think these do better than the Buds Z2 here. Realme seems to have been putting an effort into their audio after all these years, it seems. It's very easy to focus on any details in your audio with these. High frequencies are a little subtle, so they don't come through with the energy and detail that I'd like them to. Then again, this ensures they don't pierce the ear and cause fatigue over longer listening sessions. Listening to Pliny's Electric Sunrise, which is usually not easy to consume unless you prefer a heavier genre of music, becomes quite easy to digest because of how these handle their higher registers. This tuning also ensures that these earphones don't get sibilant. Mid frequencies come through in what's a very mass market tuning for earphones these days. The lower mids are recessed more than the higher mids, making female vocals sound a bit tinny and as if they're coming at you from much further away. Male vocals do sound a bit more present, but you can tell there is a dip in this range. This isn't all that bad though. Listening to Yo Claw's Dead Ringer, you can tell their voices are a bit pulled back, but these earphones imaging helps keep definition in all instruments and vocals. Low frequencies have good extension and don't handle this range with much drama. meaning they're not as obnoxious as the Z2 when it comes to handling this frequency. They have a more balanced approach and are quite enjoyable. The character of the bass seems to rely a lot on whether you're listening to a good recording or not, reminding me that they seem to sound like they have an amping issue. Listening to The Weeknd's Blinding Lights, these are no slouch in the bass department, but when you switch over to The Weeknd's I Feel It Coming, the bass seems to relax a bit like it's on holiday. So this got me wondering if the volume enhancer mode helps at all with the amping with these. So it turns out the EQ modes and the volume enhancer mode will have its own crowd of people who really enjoy playing with it. That amping issue that these seem to have sorts itself out really well once the volume enhancer is turned on. At lower volumes, the bass is fuller and has better delivery. It seems to develop a bit of a kick when this is engaged. I expect majority of people will want to keep the volume enhancer on, but keep in mind, don't crank it too loud if you want to look after your ears. So once the volume enhancer is on, I really didn't feel like I had to go beyond 40 or even 45%. So I tested these earphones on their balance profile. You can put it on a bright mode or even a bass boost plus mode. The bright mode boosts treble in a very uncomfortable way. They tend to pierce slightly and it's not ideal for music listening. Perhaps it could work for podcasts or audiobook consumption. The bass boost plus mode could have been tuned a lot better than what it is. It just gets boxy and booming when it's switched on. It's not really very enjoyable, I'd say. If you have an internal EQ in your phone, you might be better off playing around with that, especially if it has multiple bands to play with. So to sum up, when it comes to the build, the overall fit and finish of this is pretty good, but one thing I don't like is every manufacturer is choosing to go with this glossy finish, and it very evidently is prone to scratching and scuffing. So matte is the way to go. I remember I reviewed a set of Oppo Enco W31s which had a matte finish case, and that is still going strong. It's still in pretty good condition. It doesn't look as bad as a case that would have been glossy. Then when it comes to the housing, I do find it really peculiar that these are as large as they are. There's no real need for it to be that big. If I'm being really honest, the left earbud does feel like it might fall out even when I'm walking. The right earbud does fit perfectly fine, but these could fit a little more snug than they do. The fact that it's so slippery to interact with these earphones, I find it really weird, because they have mentioned that you can grab it a particular way in their manual, but I still find them to just slip straight out of my hand, and sometimes they just popped out of the case, out of my fingertips and fallen on the desk. They, I hope, consider adding ridges to the stems or something like that to make these easier to interact with. Then when it comes to the feature front, one thing I really do like is the multi-device pairing, because being connected to two devices simultaneously was something you only saw in higher end headphones. So I think this is the first brand at this price range that's trying to do this, but clearly it needs a lot more work because it's got a lot of glitches. It needs to be ironed out. Maybe Realme might fix it over a software update or firmware update. I don't know, but if they do, maybe I'll report that on one of my long-term reviews. Another thing I find really strange about these is I reviewed the first generation Buds Air, which came with wireless charging, and I think those were sold for about 2,999, and I think over 2 years ago. So the fact that those could have wireless charging and they've not put it in their latest Buds Air 3 that look as sleek as they do, I find it really odd. When it comes to the ANC, I really can't complain about these because they do genuinely well in eliminating all sorts of noises, be it from a road if you're near a busy street, from the fan if you want to mute the sound of an AC or anything. They do genuinely really well. And what's really good is the combination of the cancelling and the isolation ensures that even if you don't want to absorb any content and you just want peace and quiet, you just need to pop these in, put them on the strong mode, and you're sorted. So when it comes to their sound, I didn't expect to be this surprised by them. They do shine through pretty well, especially considering they're priced at what they are. And if you're somebody who can deal with some of the things, some of the issues that I mentioned in the past, I'd say these are a definite go for set of earphones, because Realme has done a good job. So would I recommend these? Considering I got these for about $34.99, but that was an introductory offer. They're going for about, I think, $3,999 right now. For $4,000, I'd say these are a terrific set of earphones because you get good sound and a few good features. I definitely recommend these. But if you're wondering whether you should go for these, the OnePlus Buds Z2 or the Nothing Ear ones, that's something even I'm interested to look into, because I cannot do that comparison right now because my OnePlus Buds Z2 have gone in for a replacement because they had an active noise cancelling issue. So only once they're back can I pit these three sets of earphones against each other and hopefully see soon which one is the best out of those. So I hope my review helped you in some way or the other, and if you would like to support my channel, you know exactly what to do. And thank you for tuning into Paul's POV for some sound advice.